What's up everybody, Arrg the Pirate here, and today I'm going to go over my tips and tricks for the offlane. So the offlane is one of the harder positions to play. You are typically in a 2v1 lane, and this is a support and an ADC against some sort of offlaner. Now, you might be a carry offlaner, an assassin. There's so many different roles that can be played as the offlane hero, but typically the support hero and the ADC are going to do about the same amount of damage, and them being able to both focus you and having to fight that minion wave can be problematic if you are taking a lot of poke damage. And that really brings me to my first point. Avoiding poke damage is key for the offlane position. Not only does poke damage slowly whittle your damage down and might force you to use a healing potion, but it also adjusts the minion waves. Now, if you get hit by the enemy hero, your minions will stop attacking the enemy minions and they will go after the hero. This repositions your minions and gives several seconds of just damage done by the enemy minions to your minions. So that means your wave will die out faster, as well as it will be closer to their lane or their tower. So you're going to have to be pushed out of lane. If you are low on health, stay away from the enemies. Go to your tower, stay in range to still get that experience, but really allow that healer token to get you back up with health. Maybe use a health potion, any type of those things to really maximize the time you're able to stay in the lane. Now, one thing I do see with a lot of offlane heroes is they use their health potion either way too early or way too late. You do have 2 health potions, and I typically get down to 50% health. I use a health potion. I might be able to back away and let that healer token really get me to full health, but I would rather be safe than sorry. And 50%, if you're out of health potions, you can still stay in lane and allow your healer token to, do a little work. But at that point, if you get rooted or stunned or anything like that, it might be very hard for you to get out of that situation. So that kind of brings me into the next point as the offlane hero. Stay alive. Now, your tier 1 tower is designed to fall. It is better if you can hold on to it for, 10 minutes or so, but anything beyond that is almost hurtful in a way because it limits your farm. If you are in a solo queue and your team is not communicating, you keeping your tower for 20 minutes really doesn't help anybody because it's limiting your farm. Especially with a hero like Wukong, which I'm playing right now, I need to kill minions. My job is to get a lot of farm, and although I can farm faster than everybody else, I am considered a carry, so I don't really come alive until I've got a lot of card points. This does not mean just walk away from your tower and let them take it, but it does mean if they've got a wave pushing into your tower, just get out. If you see here, my tower is very low, but I think I can get one more wave of XP and maybe a couple of last hits in before they actually push into this tower. But once the minion wave crosses this tower's, perimeter, I know that I'm not going to be able to stop them. So I'm going to back up and kind of let them take the tower. I want to stay safe. If I would have stayed under that tower and tried to do damage to them, it's very possible I would have died. Now, once you've downed the enemy's tier 1 tower, your lane is naturally going to be set because you will have a minion wave in that tower, and most of the time you've already got another minion wave on the way, but typically your lane is going to be naturally set. So this allows you to be able to turn around and go do something else because that lane's going to naturally push. Now, once you hit that tier 1, or once you down that tier 1 tower, rotation is key. You want to go help out lanes if you can, almost like a second jungler. Although, you only want to do this when your lane is pushed. If your lane is back at your tower, that's your job. You need to go take care of your lane. But if it's on the other side, in between the tier 1 and tier 2 of the enemy's towers, just leave it alone and let it naturally push, and you should go around and try to do other objectives. Now, the offlane position really has two different types of kind of categories of offlane heroes. You have heroes that push lanes like Iggy, Greystone, and Wukong, where they're constantly pushing pressure, and if the enemy team ever rotates, you're able to punish them by taking down a tower. And then you have other heroes that strive at setting lanes and then rotating and trying to get into fights and get kills that way. Now, Wukong, like I said, is a lane pusher. So what you want to do is apply a little pressure and then leave. Let the enemy adjust that lane, head back to your lane, and keep that pressure up so they're constantly forced to deal with you. And this is exactly how this is accomplished. In this clip right here, I was forcing that lane, their Chimera showed up, and then their Crunch showed up. So they're forced to deal with the pressure that I put on them. And that takes two of their heroes out of any sort of fight or anything like that. I'm able to rotate, I end up getting this Countess kill, I go head over, clean out this jungle camp, and then I head back to my lane to keep that pressure up. Now, if you see, I did not immediately run away when that Chimera showed up because I had the minion wave advantage. Knowing the advantages of minions waves is huge. If he would have tried to attack me then, he would have been a very easy kill, just because not only do I hit like a truck, but I've got my whole minion wave hitting him as well. But as soon as those waves met, it was not Crunch that made me leave, it was the minions that made me leave. So knowing how to adjust for minion advantages and, just keeping that pressure up is key. Now, the next kind of tip that I have is Invade the Jungle. Now, if you are playing a hero that strives at pushing lanes, that means you're going to be out of position a lot. And on the other side of the, on the enemy side of the map. This opens you up for invading jungles, which is an amazing thing to do when you have the time. And there's no better time to actually do it than when you are running away out of position. The enemy's team is going to have to deal with the pressure you just caused, so they're not going to be focused in that, in that enemy jungle or in that jungle. You can go over there, knock out a jungle camp, and then instantly turn around, head back into the lane, because once they've dealt with the pressure that you applied, you might be able to, turn around and head somewhere else. Now, if you see here, I did get baited a little bit, but since I do have that mobility, I'm able to get out no problem at all. And the best thing is their support and their jungler are now in my lane, having to deal with pressure when they could be elsewhere helping their team. Now, before I wrap this video up, I'd just kind of like to briefly go over all the little tips and tricks that I gave. First being poke damage. Poke damage is super important to avoid. Not only does it reposition the minions, but it can stack up and it can force you out of lane. Stay alive. Don't die for your tier 1 tower. Don't die to try to get a kill. It's much better to stay alive than it is to get an ADC kill in the beginning of the game, because you're just taking yourself away from farm, and they're going to get back in lane before you, because not only are you at a higher level, so your respawn timer's faster, but if you killed them and then died, they're also going to get a couple of seconds because they died first. Rotation is key. Once you down your tier 1 tower, or even before that, if you really need to, rotate. It is a great idea to rotate as that offlane hero because you can provide some assistance. Keep pressure up. Pressure is key as the offlane hero. You can do this by either pushing lanes or by setting lanes and creating these massive hordes of minions. But either way, you need to keep your pressure up, and as soon as you see that lane pushing back to you, get ready to rotate back to that offlane position and reset that lane. And lastly, jungle invades. As the offlane hero, you have the easiest access to the good part of the enemy jungle. The Amber Link, the green buff, and 3 of their camps. Of course, you don't want to spend a whole lot of time in that enemy camp or in that enemy jungle, but go and invade. If they are forcing you back, you can always steal resources from them. Well, that's going to wrap it up for my offlane tips and tricks, and I really hope that it helped you kind of realize a few things that you weren't aware of, or I got to show you a few things. It's really hard to force these situations in a PvP match, and I did try to get it in a PvE match, but you can't really do that either because half the time Rampage or your jungler and your mid laner will come over when you're trying to set a lane and tear it to pieces. So it's really hard to get those situations as well as some of the other ones that I talked about. But if you enjoyed this video, show me some love, leave me a comment, think about subscribing, and as always, I'll see y'all in the next video.